So a lot of times, as a manager of the firm, the only time I know that certain policy decisions are being made by other divisions is when I see the numbers. Like, hey, that's weird. Why didn't we sign up as many, you know, work comp cases as we did, last March?
Sharp strategies, sweet success. All right, hello and everyone, and welcome to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success. This is Tiffany Swedensky, and today with me I have Tim Semelroth of RSH Legal. I've known Tim a really long time, and actually, I don't think he remembers this, but the first day that I met him was the same day I made like a big screw up with a typo in an email newsletter. And I came to apologize to Ben right as he was meeting you. And so I had to tell both of you about how I screwed up an email newsletter. But that was my memory of first meeting Tim back when I was working at Great Legal Marketing. And I've basically known him ever since and kind of been in orbit around his firm. He does a lot of great marketing. Kelly, who's a friend and also a member of my marketing director mastermind, is also somebody that I'm pretty much in continuous contact with. She's really great, really smart marketer. And so that's kind of my introduction to Tim. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to him and let him introduce himself.
Well, you will be happy to know that I have no memory of your typo. And if I had to say how I met you, I would say that it was through Great Legal Marketing, but it quickly became apparent to me that you are often the smartest person in the room, particularly when it comes to digital marketing. And so I always make sure that I take a lot of notes when you talk. So a little about me. So my name's Tim. I'm from Iowa. My firm is the largest personal injury and disability firm in the state. And that is, in part due to our marketing team, which is led, as you said, by Kelly Redema. She's been with us for, gosh, I think 8 years, and she keeps us on task, and she makes sure that all of my good ideas get implemented, and she makes sure that all of my bad ideas never see the light of day.
I feel like I recognize that Captain America poster behind you. Did you get that from somebody that I think I know?
Uh, no, I spoke at a conference about it was about trucking cases, because that's while my firm does all kinds of personal injury and disability, what I do is I represent people who've been injured in truck accident cases. And so after I spoke, the person who put on the program sent me this poster and a really cool bound collection of Captain America stories.
Yeah, that's really neat. So are you a big comic book fan? Is that just part of your brand?
I am. I tell people that when I was 14 years old, I had a $30 a month comic book habit, but I was only making $20 a month on my paper route. And so in order to support my habit, I was buying candy at the local convenience store and selling it at school. And so I was able to do that for a while. I had to go cold turkey, uh, after about a year or two of that. And the thing about a comic book, it's like a potato chip. You can't eat just one. Well, you can't just read one comic book. But when Marvel started creating their movies, that was something that I was able to do with my kids. And so that just sucked me right back in. But Captain America has a warm place in my heart because when I started high school, I was 5'2" and I weighed 90 pounds. And so there were a lot of aspects of Captain America's origin story that spoke to me.
So I don't know if this is probably like the classical first question, but it's one that I'm very curious about you and your workflow. Because I mentioned before, like you guys do a ton of really great marketing, and I feel like I just see you everywhere. Can you tell, the attorneys who are listening or the marketers, like, can you tell them like how much of that marketing are you actually doing? Like what types of marketing task are you doing? Are you delegating it? Or how are you just kind of bringing it all together?
Yeah. So where we are right now, I just got done with our weekly Zoom team meeting with our marketing team. So that consists of Kelly, who's our marketing director. She has an assistant, Ronan, who is a virtual assistant from South Africa, who's been with us for 4 years,
Oh,
and
wow.
then my executive assistant, Alex. So it's the four of us. We have a weekly meeting for about an hour, and we follow the schedule that Dan Martell talks about in his book Buy Back Your Time. So we go through, what can I offload? So a lot of that is our ideas that I have. Then we go through the calendar, what's coming up. Oh, I've got this speaking event here. Ronan, can you create a graphic for me so I can post that on social media? Or Kelly, can I get this? So uh, consistently an hour a week, right? I write one LinkedIn post a week. Everything else that you see on LinkedIn is all part of a content calendar and strategy that Kelly, for the most part, implements. I mean, I'm involved with the big ideas, but she's the one that makes sure it gets posted. In terms of I do like to speak a lot. So if I speak at a conference, obviously I'm spending time doing that. But in terms of like making sure the newsletters go out, or the gifts go out to our mavens or things like that, that's all being done by the team, and I manage that based upon an hour a week together.
Yeah. And, I think people kind of underestimate how valuable like speaking or, going out in the community and getting pictures, community marketing, all of those things, that's something really only you can do. And but it's so valuable when you go out and do it because your marketing team gets something to promote and talk about on social media, keeping everything active. It gets them marketing assets, content, which are very valuable and can be used in a million places. And it just also just increases your like personal brand, that kind of amorphous thing, just your notoriety in a good way among in the community. And you are, somebody who's consistently showing up and just consistently making stuff, and I really admire that. So you do seem like a really busy person while able to like do like all of this stuff. Like are you just working like a normal 8-hour day and you're like really efficient at your time, or do you work a little bit longer in that? Like how do you fit it all in?
Yeah, it sort of depends on the day. I will tell you that, so I have been a student of marketing and marketing my law firm for almost 20 years. Uh, Once I got to the point in my career where I had to worry about where cases came from, I still have like the books that I bought 20 years ago, like how to design an effective uh, yellow page ad, or how to create your own Google pay-per-click campaigns. And so there aren't too many marketing tasks that at some point in the past 20 years I did not actively try to do myself. But there is a clear before Kelly and after Kelly in terms of our marketing, because I have
Mhm.
cases. I'm a practicing lawyer, and so whenever I would have a trial come up, or depositions, or anything like that, everything would just stop. And so uh, the way that I am able to be productive is because we invested finally in a in-house marketing director, and then got her the help that she needs, and a lot of what she does now is she manages uh, our relationships with our vendors. So like neither Kelly nor I actively manage our pay-per-click campaign. We do not. create our own television ads. I mean, I would say that neither of our strengths is graphic design, and so we're typically, outsourcing that to somebody else. And so, but that's it. When you can set a course or, hey, this is what we want to do, or this is what we want to try, and then you have a team in place that can implement it for you, that has made all the difference for us.
And that's one of the big, I guess, stages that I see law firms reach when they're really growing is when they not only know that they need in-house talent, but they bring it on and they're able to just scale all of these other systems. I see, some law firms who try to make, marketing a part-time role. And I just generally think they underestimate just how much there is to do in this like huge ecosystem and how much, there is to keep up with. And that, I mean, in an age of outsourcing, and I outsource a lot of people do, right? There's really a huge advantage to having like a boots on the ground in-house marketer who can help drive these programs forward. And I think it's really important that most firms do.
Yeah, and I know that because I've made all the mistakes, right? Like we tried to do marketing with, part-time interns, and we tried to do marketing with, hey, let's just hire somebody to do this for us. But I mean, like a discussion that Kelly and I had just, an hour ago, as we were talking about some videos that somebody we know is posting on social media, and we're like, those are great for Facebook or Instagram, but that message, we were talking about, doesn't we don't think it's congruent with who we're trying to attract on LinkedIn, for example, because we use LinkedIn to get referrals from other lawyers, not to teach consumers about the three things to do after they're in a car accident. And so, you can have those kind of sophisticated discussions if you have somebody who is in the office next to you, or in the virtual office next to you every day, who you can, we have a Teams chat channel that just for the marketing team. And so it may be the bane of Kelly's existence, because that's where I throw in like, hey, I want one of these, can you make it for me? And but it's a good way to make sure we don't lose track of things.
Yeah. I know I couldn't get by without Slack. That's basically how I communicate with all the team members. So, what are the metrics like when you're looking at your marketing and like or meeting with Kelly? I don't know how you guys look at the numbers. Like, what are the numbers that you're paying attention to?
Well, so she gives me a report every month that contains tables and pie charts, and so I'm looking at how many prospects we got for each category of case, how many of those we wanted, how many of those we signed up, how does that compare to our 4-year average? So it's a way to, yeah, I mean, and there's a lot more detail than that. I mean, she'd cringe if she heard me describe this report, which I think she probably spends a full day putting together. So it's like 3 pages long, and it makes me feel comfortable that our marketing is moving in the right direction, and that if we see issues like we have 17 lawyers, we have 3 different office locations, we do not just personal injury but workers' compensation, employment plaintiffs, employment law cases, social security, disability. So a lot of times, as a manager of the firm, the only time I know that certain policy decisions are being made by other divisions is when I see the numbers. Like, hey, that's weird. Why didn't we sign up as many, uh, you know, uh, work comp cases as we did, last March? And then I'm able to go talk to the people that do comp in our office, and they say, well, there was just this, Supreme Court decision that came down, and it impacts these cases that we can take. Or, hey, we just learned that, this particular type of case that we signed up a lot of 2 years ago isn't as profitable as we hoped it would be, so we're no longer taking those. So it's a thermometer as to the overall health of yeah, of the cases that we're taking in. And then The other part of that report is where does the money come from? And that's actually what we call it. It's called, yeah, it's the where did the money come from report. And so I can see how many cases we're closing each month, what the average case value is, which of those come from. We look at where our cases come from in three buckets, and that's as far as we can attribute it. So bucket number one are uh, cases from attorneys who have referred them to us for whom we pay, or who we pay attorneys fees to, referral fees. Bucket number two are word of mouth cases. And so these are, people who know our firm because we've handled a case for them before, or a lay person referred them, something where, that's the bucket where we attribute, the work that we do with our newsletters, consumer newsletters too. And then the last bucket is the general public bucket. And that's where our mass marketing, so that's when I look at, okay, well, SEO or TV or billboards or whatever, that's where I attribute those cases to. And so one of the things that Kelly gives me every month is a pie chart that shows me what percentage of cases we're getting from each of those buckets, throughout the year. And so we can see it. The thing is we've been doing this for years now, and there isn't that big of a change. It's pretty consistently, about 40% general public, 40% word of mouth, and 20 to, on a good month, 25, 30% attorney referrals.
And oddly enough, that's very similar numbers to what I'm seeing with one of my firms. When we look at case signups, we're looking at them in two ways, like how many of them were referred, how many of them were not. And attorney to attorney referrals, when we started tracking this, was very consistently 25% each month, 25%. And I just thought it was so funny how consistent those numbers were. And I loved what you mentioned earlier, like looking at that marketing data helps you solve problems or discover things in the moment. Because you had a great example, but something for me is like you look at the KPI numbers and see suddenly that we saw a drop in contact forms. And that's how we found out that, the contact form is broken or it's not visible on the homepage. And so the exercise of going through these marketing reports is more than just like looking for those upward trends. It's discovering problems, finding issues, and adapting and assigning and delegating, tasks to fix whatever it is. So I really appreciate you said that. Something that I really admire about you, because I've seen you at events several times, and you are always very focused while you're there. And I think actually Brian Glass wrote about this on LinkedIn, because after the GLM summit, you and Kelly sat down and while everyone else was going to happy hour, basically recapped on the event and like what you learned. And I just want to know, like, how do you get the most out of each event? It seems like you go to a lot, so I feel like I have to imagine like you've learned some of this stuff before, but how do you still get value out of them?
Well, first of all, if you're there, right? So you have to have a plan. If I'm going to speak at an event, I don't just fly in, speak, and leave if I can avoid it. I try to be there the whole time so that I can get the advantage of what everybody else is talking about, and what the vendors, who the vendors are, who do people like, making relationships. So that's part of it. But I take a lot of notes. And one thing that Kelly is really good about is, I get back from a conference and she's like, okay, what do I need to know about what happened at that conference? And so because I do primarily trucking cases, a lot of my conferences are related to, trucking litigation. And so there may not be a lot of marketing information, but occasionally there is. When she and I go to a marketing conference like Great Legal Marketing, we divide and conquer. We're rarely in the same room. If there are breakout sessions, we divide up. And then what we found is what works best for us is to, stay an extra night. And once the conference is done, we debrief before we get back home. Because once we get back home, she's got vendors that or waiting for a call back, and I've got clients that need attention. And so it's very easy to lose that in the ether, right? And so we try to have a real plan, like, okay, these are the ideas that we like, these are the top ones. This is, we're going to add this to our, quarterly to-do list, and you're going to worry about this, I'm going to worry about this, and that way we know we're getting the most value possible out of a conference.
I mean, that I'm gonna start doing that. That's a really good idea because, like, you go to a conference, you leave when it's over. You say like you'll do, we used to call them postpartums. You'll do the postpartum like on Monday, but you're right. Like when Monday comes, you're already forgotten some of the stuff that you've learned. Work gets busy, and you just kind of let it fall off. So I'm actually gonna start doing that next time I travel to an event. So I mean, you guys are already doing a lot of marketing. You guys are doing mass media. I guess before I forget to ask specifically about mass media, when you're looking at that, like TV ads, are you looking at a specific ROI number? Are you like calculating to where you know exactly the ROI of like a TV ad, or are you kind of putting it all in like the general brand bucket? Like, how do you guys look at that stuff?
It all goes into the general public bucket. So of those three buckets I talked about, because the reality is that did they call us because they saw our TV ad, or did they call us because they did a Google search and we were, what appeared and that reminded them of the TV ad? Or, is it, there, when you're talking about mass marketing, it's also interrelated, that it's impossible to attribute it directly to one channel. And so we look bigger picture than that. And that is, okay, every year we say, okay, how many cases did we get from the general public? What were the value of those cases? How much did we spend to get those cases? And we have, we figure out our budget for the next year for general marketing, for general public marketing, based upon what we were able to support, what was an appropriate return on investment. And so it's not something I was there 20 years ago, where it's like, oh, I need tracking numbers and I want a specific URL for that, and this, but the reality is when you're doing mass marketing, that is impossible to do well. And you'll spend more energy, or I would spend more energy, trying to keep track of all that, try to figure out what it means. Some years, the number of internet cases increase, some years it's TV. It all ends up, like I said, being about that 40% range of new cases for us.
And that really aligns with just some numbers I was looking at recently, because I think only like 30% of people start their search for an attorney using Google. And so, like, when we think of SEO, PPC, it's like a much smaller piece of the pie. TV is another piece of the pie, referrals is another piece of it, and it all just interconnects and works together. The other question I had for you before I had to get the ROI one out of the way. Um, so how do you look at new marketing opportunities? Like, and maybe this is just because I want to know what gets attorneys excited about marketing. But like when you're looking at like, oh, this is a great idea. What is that typically for you?
Well, first thing I do is look at, okay, who is the target? Is this a project that we're going to do that is going to increase attorney referrals to us? Is this a project that is going to increase the people in our herd, encouraging their friends and neighbors to talk to us? Or is this a general marketing? Is this mass marketing that's going out to everybody? And so we try to be clear about that, because it's really easy to just spend money on mass marketing. But like I said, that's on a typical year, that's only 40% of our intake. And so we don't want to be spending 80% of our money on 40% of our new cases. We need to make sure that we're spending money that is more consistent with where the cases are coming from overall. But a lot of it is, you know your avatar client, and it's like, is this something that is going to is this going to put us in front of them? Is this something new? And I'm a student of marketing. I'm a student of marketing for lawyers in particular. And if I hear smart people like you recommend a particular tactic, then that's something I'm probably going to look at.
So we talked about social media marketing, SEO, mass media. Are you guys doing a lot of like print marketing or like I guess more community marketing, but or anything like that?
Yes. So we send out 9,000 newsletters a month
Nine.
to past, current clients, people who've downloaded things off our website. That's our consumer newsletter. In 2024, we started a newsletter specifically for attorneys in Iowa, and so that is another 5,000 people. And so I mean, we are. I tell people it's like we spend a lot of money to dominate your mailbox. I mean, if you are in our system, you are getting for sure a monthly newsletter. If we have your birthday, you are getting a birthday card. If you are getting a holiday card, uh, if you're a lawyer, you're getting our lawyer newsletter, and then of course you've got the e-newsletters that go along with that. So it's we try to make sure that it's impossible to forget about us.
Is it you writing the content, Kelly? Is it a mix? Is it outsourced? Like how are you guys, particularly for like the referral newsletters?
So for the attorney referral newsletters, here is our system. I write one LinkedIn post a month or a week, pardon me. The most popular LinkedIn posts then get put into a twice a week e-newsletter that goes out to the lawyers whose email addresses we have. The ones that are clicked on the most then get turned into print news articles. So I write that one thing and then Kelly repurposes it for the e-newsletter, for the print newsletter. Our print newsletter is only one-page glossy front and back. So at best it has 2-3 articles in it. But that all comes from from the LinkedIn posts. And my hope is in 2025 that it won't just be me, it'll be the other lawyers in my firm who are posting on LinkedIn, and they're slowly but surely getting on board with that. In terms of our consumer newsletter, Kelly does 90% of that. I mean, I hired Kelly because she's a good writer. And so we will talk about subjects, but our newsletter is like consumer, it's like Reader's Digest type stuff. It's like consumer tips and recipes and one article that has something to do with a legal thing. And so she does all of that. We've got enough blog posts and things like that she can repurpose things. So I rarely.
And if you guys are interested in learning a little more about Kelly, she was on the same podcast a couple months ago. And we actually talked about how important like writing is to be a good marketer, because it certainly is. And I love that system you guys have for the referral newsletter, because it's, you have it basically proven content written for the same audience, and you just cycle through and use the best performing pieces. That is so smart. Um, are you guys doing video as well? Or are you getting behind the camera regularly, semi-regularly? I mean, you are
Yes,
now.
yes, but we are retooling it. We had a system for years that Kelly was doing where she would write the first draft of a blog post. She would send that to a lawyer. That lawyer would then edit it, and then they would set up a time. So, you would have typically one video session with Kelly a month, or every, as we got bigger, maybe like a couple a year, and you would just knock out like 5 videos, right? And then she would divide that out. What we learned is that we were prolific, but we weren't very strategic. And so we've pulled back on our video production and we've we're doing things with some vendors to help us be smarter about the YouTube algorithm and things like that. So, uh, you know, talk to me next year at this time, and I'll be able to describe the whole process. But we're still in the midst of retooling what we had historically done on video.
Another question I have for you is how do you get the involvement of the other attorneys at your firm? I mean, yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, some things you just tell them you have to do, right? It's like, hey, you need to, film these blog posts, and so they'll come into this, the studio, and Kelly will film them, and so everybody's pretty on board about that. Uh, it kind of depends. I mean, the reality is that you can't make somebody into what they're not. And so if they are not comfortable in front of the camera, or they don't like to write, or they're not prolific social media posters, I don't think that you can turn somebody into one of those. But the takeaway that I would share with people is, if you identify that aptitude in somebody on your team, you want to support it, because you can't invent it.
I know, like, we're trying out a couple programs where we're getting the attorneys systematically involved by saying, like, hey, you have to do this on social media, do this. But you're right. Like, people just have their aptitudes. Not everyone's going to be good behind the camera. And just like support the talents they do have without, like, trying to get them just to work outside their wheelhouse, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah, you'll beat your head into the wall, it trying to get people to do anything related to marketing. I mean, it's like, hey, take people out for drinks. Hey, go speak at conferences. If that's not something that they like to do, uh, they're never going to be good at it. And I've learned that the hard way. It's like, we have you can go on my YouTube video right now, and you can see videos that people in my firm that have done, that look like, hostage videos. It's like they're not excited about being on camera. And so that's one of the nice things that, is that you can always get vendors to audit your website, and now for free. And now more and more, you can get people to audit your YouTube channel, and sometimes for free, sometimes for a small cost. And that is very helpful. That's one of the lessons that I took away from a recent audit is, stop trying to send turkeys to eagle schools. Why are you putting this person in front of the camera? They clearly don't like it. They didn't spend any time trying to get good at it. And it's like, of course, I should know that.
My issue has always been I like getting behind the camera. I'm still working on being good at it. It's a learned skill. So you guys are doing, like, just again, just a ton of stuff. And I don't know if you have something you want to keep in your back pocket, but can you tell me about some of the marketing that you guys have coming up that you're implemented that you're really excited about, if you haven't talked about it yet, or something you have going on that you just are really thrilled about?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story about something that we did a couple of years ago, and that is, with my son, we created a online course that teaches middle school and high school kids how to participate in the mock trial competitions. And those are huge in Iowa. Iowa has huge participation. And so what my son did was he interviewed lawyers in the firm. A lot of lawyers in our firm have experience either competing in mock trial or coaching teams, created a whole online curriculum for that. And then we give that, access to that for free to anybody in the state of Iowa, any students. So every year in the fall, we get a bunch of middle school kids, enrolling in this course. In the spring, we get high school kids, not quite as many. And so the funny thing that happened was, we were at the middle school state championship in November, and we were in the halls between trials, and I was there with my two partners who are both featured in this online course. It's called, you can go see it at mocktrial101.com. And all of a sudden, this teacher that we had never met before comes up to us and says, "Okay, don't look right now, but I just want you to know there are a group of middle school kids who are completely fanboying over you right now. They recognize you from Mock Trial 101. They can't believe that all three of you are together in the same room. They think it's like seeing me." And so it was just really cool. And we realized it's like, hey, there are a lot of people who are, using this course, and they remember us.
And I'll speak to that a little bit because one of my clients worked with your son and implemented a mock trial program of their own in a different state. And I know initially when it came time to promote it, our team was a little hesitant to call schools and say, "Hey, we have this resource." But after like the first two phone calls, they were like, "Oh, all of these schools are just so grateful because all of the ones we contacted didn't have like somebody dedicated to that program. It was like a PE teacher who was kind of shoehorned into the role, or they just didn't have any resources from the school, and they loved the portal." And it was a nice little boost just to the like our community marketing. And so like it's something that you have to like spin up and build, and that part can be a lot of work, but it's just a really great like touch point with people. And obviously like you guys have done great with it. I think that website, I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have it featured on like a state website, like a state resources site, right?
Yeah, the Iowa State Bar Association has a link to that, to that page, which is on our law firm website. I mean, it goes directly to the Mock Trial 101 landing page, but it's hosted by our law firm website. And so, whether it's the State Bar Association or individual schools, they link to that page. And so, we do some very light-handed branding. You just have our logo on the corner, but otherwise the official name of the program is Mock Trial 101, powered by fightingforfairness.com, which is our firm's URL.
Well, and I just think that's such a great example of how, like, I feel like a lot of marketers who, particularly ones that are really new, just get caught up on like, we have to have our logo on it, our logo, our logo, our logo. But that's not even the most valuable thing you could do as a marketer is putting a logo on something. Just like you had a bunch of third grade students recognize you guys, and kind of fanboy over you guys. And that's so cute, by the way. But like, that you can't buy that type of notability in the community. You can't buy that type of goodwill. And it's so much more than just like putting a logo on something. So I think a lot of people look at that and not understand it, but you don't have to have branding on every single thing.
Yeah, they didn't recognize us because of our logo or because of our firm name. They saw our faces.
Yeah. Yeah, people, and that I think I said this on LinkedIn the other day, but people follow people. People don't follow brands. They connect with people. And so that's a super important part. Well, we're coming up on time, Tim. Is there anything that we didn't go over that you wanted me to go over?
I think it's just really important to figure out who your avatar client is and who you're trying to contact in a particular space, because it's, what you talk about, the message is different. And so taking the time, I know, Tiffany, you were part of a product that Great Legal Marketing put out when you were there, called, I call it marketing director in a box. There was probably a more official name, but forcing people to go through those steps. Who is your avatar client? What is the message that you want to impart? What do you want them to do with that information? Mastering those fundamentals is going to dictate the success of your project, no matter how big your budget is.
And I think that program was Elite Marketing Director, and that was my introduction to legal marketing, believe it or not. And yeah, it's like people, want to cut ahead to doing rebrands or digital ads or tracking or some of the more fun stuff. But you got to go through those basics. And really, what's important, and what I hope the lawyers listening take away from this, is that it's important to be engaged with all of that, because you are obviously really engaged with your marketing. You're speaking, you're meeting with your team, you set an hour each week, you're looking at KPIs, you are involved in the marketing. And you're not going to get the kind of results that Tim gets unless you're that plugged in to the entire thing. Um, so I really appreciate you being with us today. Is there any particular place you want people to go and find you from the podcast?
LinkedIn is the best place to reach me, particularly if you're a lawyer or you're a marketing professional listening to this. I'm the only Tim Semelroth, and I'm the only Tim Semelroth from Iowa. And so, the thing I'd just like people to know is that if you need anything in Iowa, there are only 3 million Iowans in the entire state, and if my firm or the lawyers in my firm can't help you, we probably know the person who can.
Yeah, you have great SEO value for your own name, which is a good problem to have. Um, all right. Well, thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.